So, all right, let's go on with the personal branding, which is what this morning's all about. So, personal branding in the context of a job search, I would say, is what we're talking about here. There are all sorts of personal branding, but we are talking primarily to do with the job search process and how it can really help you in that particular phase. For those of you who don't know me, just a little bit of a background about me there. Visit the website if you want to find out more. We've been going for over 10 years now. I've certainly been involved in coaching for longer than that, but this company, as Executive Connections, has been going for over 10 years. And we work with organizations and individuals in lots of different locations indicated there across the globe. And this particular series is a series of events where we run them every Wednesday, 8:30 in the morning, and we will make sure that we try to stop off at the various points that people tend to ask about quite a lot. If they engage with us on a one-to-one career coaching basis, or they become a client of ours, then certain things come up over and over. So what this is about is to try and give you a quick 101 on a given subject. So personal branding, we're going to talk a little bit about personal branding and how important it is in the job market, and how it's important to set yourself apart and make sure that you're really emphasizing what your value proposition is. It's all very well to talk about, for example, taking LinkedIn, talking about 1 billion users. You've got to somehow get above that noise. You've got to somehow be a bit more proactive, perhaps, than you might have been previously. You might need to reach out for, to sort of new, fresh networks, and that's really important. So there's a quick definition there for you. It's about showcasing what your value proposition is, essentially. So what do you want to be known for? What is that piece that when people visit your profile page or look at your CV or your resume, that they can quickly say, right, I get what this person's about within a matter of under a minute. We all know what attention spans have developed. Like these days, they're very, very short. So make sure it's punchy, and we'll give you some examples going through here as well. You want to be visible, but primarily, if you're in the job market, you want to get across the radar of more people in terms of opportunities. So by becoming more proactive and making sure you've got a strong personal brand, you are going to get across the radar of more people. That would involve more conversations, and that's where often the best jobs are. And we've talked about the hidden jobs market on previous sessions like this. So I assume that many of you would have a value proposition now. If I sort of said to somebody, give me your elevator pitch, that you'd be able to give me a kind of an idea as to what you do, what your offering is to the world or to the sector that you're chosen to work in, and just ensure that you kind of practice it and make sure you own it and it sounds comfortable. It doesn't sound like you're kind of reading it off in your mind. You kind of practice it very much like an actor would, preparing for a role, and just make sure that you've got that off pat, because that elevator pitch is a bit of a cliche, I suppose, but it will be really important, and it's usually the first thing that someone will ask you in a conversation, whether it be a formal interview setting or otherwise. And if you nail that, you'll get a lot more confident throughout the whole kind of piece. And just make sure it's you. I've known people that have created some really good, strong CVs. I guess I'm talking about authenticity, really. Created a strong CV, get invited to interview, and then when they're at the interview, they can't really talk about the stories, the examples. They don't sound like the same person in the CV. So again, CVs is another session that we've done, and I always mention, don't get too obsessed about the CV itself. There'll never be a perfect one. There's too many opinions on what makes a good CV in any case, and we're not sort of separate from that. We've got a take on it as well, but just make sure that you are keeping these points in mind when you're thinking about your personal brand. How will someone understand what it is that you bring to the market? So we're going to look at some of these examples. It's really, we've all heard of the start with why, as in the sort of Simon Sinek book, but this is about talking about how and then finishing with what. And what does that mean? I'm going to give you some examples. I did add something in here at the last minute actually about making sure that with these kind of examples, you align it with further stories or benefits that you've brought to your role. So always have some answers ready for people if we're talking in an interview context that you can draw out of your bag when you need them, if and when you need them, and you're ready to sort of fire them off. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this. It's difficult if someone's talking and you're trying to read. So essentially, you'll get the recording of this. You'll be able to take your time and go through these. Just two examples. I'm sure you can work the example through to your own situation, but just remember that framework, if nothing else. There's a little bit of it reminds me a little of the STAR format for answering questions. Let's say it's another format, and I think it keeps you quite grounded, because it's very easy when someone's asking you, tell me a bit about yourself. What do you stand for? What do you love? What are your passions? What gets you out of bed in the morning? This keeps you grounded. This kind of format will keep you grounded. And as I look over this, I think, well, yes, there are examples. Yes, there's some words I might not use naturally here, and there's some bits and pieces you might change. And that is absolutely fine. Make it your own language. Going back to the previous slide, remember about authenticity. It's got to be in your own language. That's very, very important. So yeah, you'll get these in the recording, or grab a screenshot now if you haven't done it already. Well, too late. There you go. you can see the recording, and I'm sure that you will have already taken a screen if you wanted to do that. So this is all about how, in terms of personal branding. Some ideas there around, the whole who am I and where can you actually get that message across. So the slightly sort of grayed out text here under the who am I title in your LinkedIn profile, the banner. What do I mean by the banner? It's that piece just behind your photo that some people use and some people don't. But if you're not using that, put a photo in there that's, that means something to you, a piece of scenery you love, or a building. It could be anything. Something appropriate, obviously. Some people like to put in a picture of themselves standing at a podium, or giving a speech or something like that as well, to demonstrate that thought leadership piece. But whatever you do, use that banner behind your photo. It's well worth doing. And a lot of these are sort of repetitive in terms of using posts and other opportunities to actually make sure that you get your message across. It's very important. It's consistent. It's got to be consistent. People say, I don't think I'm posting often enough. I'm going to start doing, once a week. Once a week is fine. I'd say twice a week is better. If anything more than that is going to stretch your current workload, depending on if you're in a role or if you're not, then in the latter, you've obviously got a little bit more time to look at things like this. So make sure the profile's all populated. That's going to help your personal brand, and make sure that you're actually then actively using the platform. If we're talking about LinkedIn, if it's a totally different platform that you use, same kind of things will apply in terms of being consistent, making sure your brand is consistent to who you are as a person. The link I've put there is a free service. I'm not affiliated in any way, shape or form, but it just gives you one of these kind of business card type of websites that you can create quite easily. You may have heard of it already. There are probably others, but it's one that, having had feedback from various people, seems to be quite easy to use. And it just takes us away from talking about everything to do with LinkedIn. You can frame your own brand on there. It can be your own calling card. It could be where you refer people to get a quick overview of who you are. Obviously, you'd put your LinkedIn page on there as well, I suspect. So, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. And then thought leadership. I don't know how many people get involved in speaking engagements, whether they be remote or being on panels. I've certainly spoken to people who've got involved in all of that. And it's just generally a question of making sure that you, there we are, making sure that you're putting your message out there. That's the point, that you're getting into forums that are going to engage with people, engage with potential employers, engage with hiring managers, demonstrate who you are as a leader, if that's a role that you're in. And don't forget, good old-fashioned live networking. It still exists, and I think if you can be quite picky about it and quite specialized, then there are still some good live actual networking events that are out there, depending on your discipline and your sector and where you are located. So you've got a personal brand. Everyone's got one, like it or lump it. We've all got one. The check-in means keep revisiting it. It's not something that you put there and then think, well, I'm gonna leave that now. People will create a strap line for themselves maybe and put that on LinkedIn or put that on their own website. But then again, in a month's time, they might think actually there's a better way of doing that, or I want to change it slightly. So just keep reviewing things. Ask trusted friends and colleagues what they think as well. There's no reason not to do that, and just get some honest feedback about how you come across if it was kind of a dispassionate review that they're offering. And Google Alerts is really, you've heard of that, obviously. It's going to be one of those, what is your specialism? Do you want to set up a Google Alert for specific roles, for specific news about a company that you might be following, that you're trying to sort of get into as an employee? Number of different ways you could use Google Alerts. So have a think about that and just think how you can use it to your own benefit. Quite a bit to take on board, but you can review the recordings here, and it's just simply about making sure you've got a decent elevator pitch, your profile's populated, and that you're being proactive if you're using LinkedIn in that way. I mean, it is necessary these days. Like I said, whether we like it or not, we've all got a brand, and you can either be one of the many, or someone who stands up and puts their head above the parapet a bit and gets noticed a little bit more. And it's about also growing that personal brand and making sure that you're putting in activities, or you're attending events, or you're keep updating your profile with events and opportunities that you've attended that are going to enhance your profile. So it'd be good for me to know what you have taken away from this piece, if anything. So put that in the chat if you like, or we can talk about it in terms of a question that you may have. More than happy to sort of answer it one-to-one. It is very important in terms of the job search. So don't think of it as just a phrase and you throw it away. It's an activity, and it's a strategy about winning that role at the end of the day. If we haven't spoken before, maybe you want to have a chat about your own personal brand and how do you actually refine it and define yourself, then use that first link. We can have a one-to-one chat about that. If you're either here or you're watching a recording, same would apply. Similarly, if you're someone from HR who wants to discuss unfortunate redundancy situations, then we can help with that as well. And those links will be in the chat. So as I'm always at pains to say, we'll come back in for questions. I can see something in the chat there at the moment, which I'll come to in a second. But it does not have to be about personal branding. It can be about any particular situation. We've had people before ask questions about an interview they've got lined up, in the next day or two. More than happy to talk about any particular subjects which are close to your heart. So just some quick examples here of people that we've helped in real time as clients of Executive Connections. There are many more of these on our website. A business like ours is all based around social proof, isn't it? So this is why I'm showing you this screen, that we're not talking about something in theory. We put these theoretical things into practice to the benefit of people that we work with, and they get good results from it, and they're fine about us putting their name and photograph in to actually talk about that. So, okay, I'll close the presentation there. Remember, the Q&A is all about any subject that you like. Come back into the room a sec. So let's have a look, see if I can get some messages here. When you say 2 posts a week, do you mean 2 original posts or reposts with a comment? So I think that I would say 2 original posts of your own content. What you can also do, because it's quite a quick
in terms of clicks. It's quite a quick activity. If you see a post that is quite viral, or it's in your world, if you will, there's some relevance to reposting it, then I see no problem with just adding that as an additional activity. Just kind of, yeah, repost. The whole thing about adding to that a little bit, the whole thing about liking, commenting, sharing, and so on, is something you can do anyway, as well as it does not include, or it's additional to the whole piece about just posting your own content. The content isn't, I mean, if I'm explaining something now, you think, Steve, it's so obvious. Why are you explaining that? Because someone's asked the question before. And the question is, when I say posts, I don't mean posts that are talking about so much about your situation and that you're in the job search scenario and things like that. I'm talking about thought leadership. What problems do you solve? What scenarios, do you help with? I was in a webinar yesterday. I'm not a HR practitioner by trade. I was in a HR webinar yesterday listening about burnout in the sort of HR profession. Very, very interesting. Helps me to learn more about that particular subject area. And, it's something you can then talk to people about with a bit more authority as well. So, look around, see what's out there, see what you can attend that's going to maybe enhance your network. There will always be networking opportunities as well. But coming back to your question, yeah, 2 posts a week, your own content. Okay. So has anyone got a question, either one they want to put in the chat or one that they would like to put their hand up to?
Steve, I just have a comment, or a comment rather. So
Sure.
what made me realize now is, and thank you for that, it's the consistency, to be on whatever platform you prefer, but, let's say LinkedIn, to really engage with your network and on a regular basis and show interest, show that interest and really engage, but on a regular basis. So that actually popped up for me. Wow, that's the thing.
Yes, I think so. I think you're absolutely right. I talk to people a lot about this, whether they're clients, whether they're not, whether we're just having an initial one-to-one, whatever it is. I'll often say about this pie chart of a job search and how you promote yourself, and where people are much more likely to gravitate towards advertised roles and just working with recruiters, and that's it. And that is fine. I don't say don't do that, but there's that other piece that we're talking about now. So kind of personal branding evolves into how you use your social platform, as you say, your chosen social platform. Most people on these calls would be LinkedIn, but I realize it's not exclusively that. These days, the hidden jobs market, it's all kind of related in a way, because the more you promote your personal brand, the more that you have a strong and recognizable personal brand, the more likely you are that people will come across your profile. And that's what it is. The problem with it is that people sometimes don't see that as tangible enough, depending on their job, the background they come from, if they got scientific or a logical mind. The thing about actually doing lots of activities that may or may not lead to something is anathema to them, I think, a lot of the time. And it does take time, like the jumbo jet going down the runway, building up speed, taking off. Don't run, coming back to the comment in the post about a couple of posts a week. The first couple, it might be like tumbleweed. There might just be nothing. And it's just about being, as you've rightly said, about being consistent and making sure that you've got a pattern. We've got lots of tools at our disposal these days where we can draft and come up with ideas that could run for weeks and weeks. So and the other way of doing that, of course, is that there are plenty of free at the point of use social posting platforms as well. So if you think, oh, it's Tuesday, I've got to do
I've got to do my first post of the week. You could have already written it a week ago, and it could just be scheduled to go out. So, and those tools are available to everybody to use. You know, I've got no particular recommendations for those, but I would say there are plenty of ones out there that are free to use, or certainly would have an extensive trial if nothing else. So yes, I've just got a little question come in on the chat a second. So someone's asking about the AI applicant tracking systems, etc. It's something where, you know, if you're doing too much of this kind of optimization, there are even programs out there now that can recognize if you've put something through AI and all sorts of things. So I think there's a kind of an inherent danger about doing too much in that respect. It comes back to, for me, it comes back to authenticity, and making sure that everything you put in there is absolutely spot on about you as a particular candidate. With the people that we work with quite often, maybe it doesn't come up quite as much because at leadership level, there is often a dialogue with a headhunter or recruiter. There is often a straight to the hiring manager kind of conversation that goes on. But I understand, obviously, you know, the whole ATS piece is out there. And if you are focusing, what I would say, if you're at leadership level, is too much in the direct applications, then I understand why you are going to be concerned about ATS and all the rest of it. But beware, I can't remember the name of the software now, but someone told me once, there was quite recently, that there is a piece of software out there that can somehow, by perhaps the kind of way it styles things or the type of language it can use, that it can recognize AI. So whilst, you know, and we all use it for frameworks or laying out ideas and things like that, I would certainly just use it on a very low level basis. But yeah, I think that you've just got to put your, in terms of a CV style, by the way, and the whole ATS piece, you know, I talked about people having CV preferences. The advice we give about CVs is based on some independent research we commissioned a couple of years ago, where we went out and spoke to candidates, but more importantly, in this case, headhunters and recruiters, and what do they like to see on an executive level CV. And they talked about executive summary at the top, or your personal profile, and then straight into the chronological career history. I think what many people do now, to kind of address what you're talking about there, and it's been quite common practice anyway, but that's interesting feedback from the recruiters about what they like to see. But what some people do is put that block in between the summary and the chronological history. They'll put a block in there about all the key skills, all the ATS stuff, basically, and just all the, you know, the skills and experiences they've got, and so on. So yeah, I think that we don't come across it as much because the way that people land roles that we work with tend to be in a slightly different way. But I see you've just unmuted yourself, Joanne. Did you want to add a comment?
I have, Steve, and I'm sorry I don't have my camera on, but I'm doing you a favour, I promise you. In the current situation, I wasn't quite prepared for that. That's a really helpful answer. And so there was a couple of things. So that was very interesting you were saying at the end about the CV, actually, because I do have my CV with the summary and those core skills, and then the chronological history. And you do get different advice from people around, you know, how to do that. And I've sort of been doing my own research, might be a grandiose term for what I'm saying, of what a good executive CV looks like. So that's quite helpful to have that feedback. Thanks very much.
Yes.
And then I thought, if you don't mind, I'd just sort of share something. So someone referred me to a job tracking site where you can put, you know, your CV in and the job spec and match them up. And I made a mistake. I copied and pasted my CV into both columns, and I hit the button and it matched 73%, and they were exactly the same document. So there's something to watch out for there as well, and even those things that just review. So it was just a mistake that I made with the paste, and I was like, well, that's really just not that helpful. But that is helpful, and also I'm sorry to bang on about the CV. You know, sort of 2 pages maximum is my understanding, and if you're saying that research is telling you the exact summary and then the chronological case history, would you still put some core skills in there or key skills somewhere else in the CV towards the end, or?
But yeah, bear in mind everyone's got a point of view, Joanne. So I can only tell you what came out of the research, and the research is really what the top tier recruiters are saying. So it's kind of not my own precious view, so to speak. But it would be, no, I think it's more about integrating everything into the chronological piece, and maybe if there's a real knockout punch of an achievement, then that goes into the executive summary as well. You know, I mean, the eyes gravitate towards the whatever currency you're working in. You know, the dollars, the pounds, the euros. The eyes gravitate towards that info throughout the CV anyway. Percentage signs, things like that. So as long as it's all populated, you know, properly, yeah, I would say it's more about integrating it into the you know, into the main document. And you might have seen me shaking my head as you were talking there. I was talking about I was referring to the 2-page scenario. Definitely don't agree with that. I mean, it's more you know, anyone that's got, you know, any size of a career at a certain point in their career, it's going to be a real struggle to try and shoehorn that into, you know, into 2 pages. So kind of anything in the 2.5 going on to 3 basis, I think is absolutely fine. People mitigate that to some extent by sometimes it depends on the conversation you're having with whoever it is, but that they will produce a 1-pager, a sort of a 1-page overview as well. And depending on the scenario, if someone just wants that 1-pager, fine. You know, if they want to refer off to your own little website you've created that's got like a different way of describing things, fine, do it that way as well. But the actual CV itself, you know, 2.5, 3 pages is fine. The other thing, again, this is recruiter feedback about they're not going to spend that long looking at it, are they really? So if you've got a big chunk of skills between those 2 sections we talked about, then you run the risk then of your chronological stuff is being pushed further down the page or being pushed onto page 2. So, you know, anything that you really want to get across and that you're proud of, I would put it as the main points in your chronological history and really be very tough about them, you know, in terms of what's there. Is it a star type of, doesn't have to be that rote, you know, but is it a star type point, or is it just I was a member of the managing board or team or something like this, you know? Is what a headhunter once described to me as a so what point, you know, and if you can do your own counsel on that, that's great. You know, if you see any so what points, think why should they be in there, but certainly rank things as well as far as impact is concerned. And you know, if possible, if you're in the kind of role where currency percentages and all that works, fine. If you're in a different kind of role where it's more about human impact, then that is fine as well. And it's just a question of making sure that all of those bullets are punchy at the end of the day. But yeah, if we haven't spoken already, then we can have a chat or have a little exchange by chat, whatever you like. Send me your document. I'll have a sort of a high level look over it. But again, there's always points of view, and at some point people can spend, you know, forever looking at their CV, but I think, well, it's basically fit for purpose. I'm now going to go off into the other kind of tasks, you know, networking, marketing myself, getting the personal branding out, doing the build it and they will come kind of piece with your own personal brand, because it will take time. And if you're spending all of it just on the CV, you can turn around and it's Christmas, you know, next time you look. So I hope it's not going on too much there. I'm getting on my bandwagon about CVs versus self-marketing, but I hope you understand what I'm getting at, Joanne, anyway.
No, that's really helpful, Steve. Thanks. And it is interesting. Everybody is sort of different. I mean, someone contacted me from an executive search agency yesterday, and they said your CV has to be, it cannot. And I said it's about 2.5 pages. They said it cannot be any more than 2. And I went, okay. And I went, can I give you a separate 1-page bio? And she said that'd be great. So, you know, I'm like, what's the difference? Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's helpful, because I felt like, I am starting to go down that road of everyone's asking me something different. And so that's really helpful to me, because I need to pull back from that over investing in the CV. So thank you very much.
All right, no problem, Joanne. Great question, and that's a really great discussion.
Okay, Steve, I just, you know, while we were
You've gone mute at the moment. Sorry.
oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so regarding the CV again, also what you were all both talking about, what I came across when, you know, at one stage I had my own CV like looked at, and the comment was that it's perfect. However, I only listed what I have done in a way, but no achievements. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like when you have like your skills and your strengths portrayed on a CV, it needs to have like a backup. You know, it needs to have proof. So like just putting a like, and maybe that is also a good thing. You know, if it's a really achievement you had, put it in the summary. But otherwise, in the body, what you have achieved, because then you can link it to your skill and to your strength. I think that's because it's tangible.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it has got to be something that works for you. And what Joanne was saying there is kind of spot on, really. It's a demonstration of the fact that we can impart certain wisdom, you know, as far as certain subject areas are concerned, and there will always be organizations and individuals that say something slightly different. I think the overarching point, if you can have a document that is your, you know, your touchstone, your kind of that's it now kind of document, then people they will all want to rewrite it, putting you through for a certain role anyway. You know, a lot of the recruiters will want to do that. So it just has to be something that's, you know, yeah, very, very true to you and tries to cover as many bases as possible. You know, I hear you there. It also doesn't touch on the, you know, I don't know how many people still do speculative approaches these days. You know, if you've got something that really speaks, you know, to your skills and achievements, not just what you did and what your job description was, as you mentioned, then yeah, you know, why not do that as well? It's another arm to the job search. You're not then always beholden to, you know, what recruiters and headhunters are saying they want at the end of the day. But thanks for that. Got a couple of minutes, guys. If anyone's got any other questions or comments that they'd like to make, either verbally or in the chat, please feel free to do so. And you've got those links. I'm just scrolling up the chat here. Yeah, thanks for putting those links in, Dorcas. So yeah, so if you've got your links in there, if you want to book an actual conversation, you know, I appreciate that sometimes these forums are not ideal for getting into the deep nitty-gritty. So we can do that a bit more on a one-to-one if you choose to do that. So if there are no more further questions, someone's just put something in the bottom here, I believe. Yep, okay. Thank you, Graham. Take care. Have a good one. And I will speak to you all again next time. So look out for all the notifications for the next session. Thank you very much for your attendance and your participation as well. It's really, really welcome. I realize it can be quite awkward sometimes in a group where you don't know everybody, but fantastic. I hope you got something out of it, and see you next time. Thanks,
Thank you so much,
everyone.
Steve.
Thank you all.